Everyone thinks Generation Alpha is growing up wrong, and that Generation Beta will be even worse. But history tells a different story. The exact same alarm plays out again and again across human civilization. Generation Alpha includes children born from around 2010 onward. Generation Beta will likely begin around 2025. These are the first generations to grow up in a world where being online is not an activity. It functions as the default setting of daily life. They grow up in environments defined by constant connectivity. Information rarely pauses. Algorithms decide what rises to the surface. Technological change moves at a speed that schools, governments, and cultural norms struggle to match. Daily life shifts first. The central question concerns adaptation. Does each generation reorganize itself around the world it inherits? This deeper question carries more weight. Do these conditions represent a true break from historical patterns? Or does a familiar cycle unfold once again, in which adults confront new behaviors and interpret structural change as decline? To answer that, three questions come into focus. How history responds when new generations rise. How psychology shapes interpretation. And what structural realities Generation Alpha, and soon Beta, will enter, navigate, and gradually reshape. One insight becomes clear immediately. The criticism directed at Generation Alpha and the bleak, grim projections attached to Generation Beta reveal far more about how adults interpret these developments than about the children themselves. Across centuries, the structure repeats, environments shift, behavior reorganizes, and adults reinterpret adaptation as decay. Look back far enough and the pattern becomes unmistakable. Around 2,400 years ago, statements attributed to Socrates described young people as undisciplined, disrespectful, and morally weak. Whether he used those exact words matters less than the tension they reflected. Classical Athens underwent political upheaval and philosophical transformation. As civic structures shifted, elders framed youth as destabilizing. Travel even further back. Ancient Mesopotamian clay tablets record complaints about laziness, declining discipline, and moral decay among the young. These societies had just built cities, codified laws, and expanded trade networks. Urbanization altered daily life. Written systems replaced oral memory. Economic structures reshaped responsibility. Behavioral shifts followed structural change. Elders interpreted those shifts as collapse. Whenever societies restructure, narratives of decline intensify. The pattern resurfaces repeatedly. The printing press triggered warnings that easy access to books would weaken memory and discipline. The spread of novels sparked fears of moral corruption. Radio entered households and critics predicted the erosion of attention. Television intensified concerns about shortened attention spans. Video games were seen as an attack on impulse control and perception of reality. Social media amplified fears of social fragmentation. Every technological leap triggers the same accusation. The young deteriorate. History stages this pattern again and again to create space for development. History alone, however, does not explain why adults continue to repeat the reaction. Psychology exposes the mechanism behind this repetition. First, memory reconstructs the past. Over time, emotional tensions fade, while internal coherence, logical connections, and temporal order increase. Adults recall stable patterns and rules more vividly than contradictory details or uncertainties. This reconstructed past becomes the benchmark against which new behavior quickly appears chaotic or unstable. Second, status plays a role. Each generation builds identity around the skills and norms that secured its influence. When environmental conditions shift, those competencies lose exclusivity. Criticism becomes a way to preserve symbolic authority during that transition. Third, cognitive fluency shapes our perception. Familiar behavior feels intuitive and correct. Unfamiliar behavior requires more mental effort. That effort generates discomfort. Discomfort then converts into moral judgment. These mechanisms operate automatically. Generational change passes through these three filters before it is perceived and evaluated as a new reality. This psychological lens explains the reaction. It does not yet explain what today's children are adapting to. Generation Alpha grows up inside fully developed smartphone ecosystems. Smartphones no longer appear as novelty. They function as infrastructure. Algorithms curate attention. Platforms compress narratives into seconds. Feedback loops deliver immediate reinforcement. Stimulation arrives continuously. This environment reshapes neural pathways linked to attention and reward processing. Research on digital media exposure connects sustained interaction with faster pattern detection, rapid context switching, and heightened responsiveness to dynamic stimuli. These traits strengthen cognitive agility in fast-moving systems. At the same time, high-density stimulation requires greater self-regulation from the brain. Environmental intensity correlates with sleep disruption, stress sensitivity, and emotional volatility. These responses reflect adaptation to stimulus-rich ecosystems rather than generational weakness. Education systems experience this collision directly. Schools follow linear pacing, while students are shaped by interactive, immediate digital environments. When these worlds meet, friction is often mistaken for declining motivation, rather than recognized as structural misalignment. The situation resembles training an athlete for a high-speed relay and then evaluating performance in a slow, strategic board game. The issue does not originate in capacity. The evaluation framework misaligns with the training environment. Generation Alpha develops skills suited for networked adaptive systems, resilience, rapid synthesis, distributed attention, and pattern integration. The social context intensifies the shift. Climate crises, pandemics, geopolitical conflicts, and real-time global media shape perception from an early age. The environment has become more complex and intense, and at the same time we have become more sensitive and more articulate in naming stress and psychological strain. Generation Alpha does not deteriorate. It reorganizes in response to surrounding architecture. That reorganization invites a forward projection. Generation Beta represents a projection based on current trajectories. If technological development continues at its present pace, embedded AI tutors may guide learning from early childhood. Voice-based systems may replace screen-based interfaces. Adaptive algorithms may tailor education in real time to cognitive profiles. AI companions may support language acquisition, scaffold problem-solving, and prompt reflective thinking. Predictive systems may adjust difficulty dynamically as learning unfolds. Memory may increasingly integrate with external systems, giving rise to distributed cognition. Rather than storing vast amounts of information internally, humans may specialize in serving as the intentional core, creating meaning, evaluating connections, and assuming moral responsibility within automated processes. This shift marks a movement from memorization toward metacognition. History provides precedent. Writing extended memory into physical form. Printing scaled knowledge across continents. Calculators expanded computational reach. Search engines accelerated retrieval. Each technological shift reorganized cognition at a higher level of abstraction and expanded humanity's capacity for cooperation. Artificial intelligence may extend that trajectory by expanding pattern recognition and systemic reasoning. Work structures will likely evolve accordingly. Automation absorbs routine analytical tasks. Human value shifts toward creativity, coordination across disciplines, ethical judgment, and complex systems thinking. This evolution follows the environment societies construct. Across centuries, the underlying structure persists. Environments transform, systems reorganize. Human behavior adapts to the structures it enters. The narrative changes the moment the question shifts from, "What is wrong with the children?" to "Who designed the world they are adapting to?"